something like coming from what Haki said about honesty. There's another an similar phrase that I dislike, which is the phrase "no offense," because it
Right.
actually normally precedes something
Uh,
offensive. I
Mm.
that's actually
remember.
my second one. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
see,
it's a lot like with
Haki
all
knows
due
it's like
respect. Yeah.
yes, that's like that when you're gonna say something not respectful.
Mm.
Welcome to season one, episode 11 of Tip Talks. That's right, episode 11. We're almost at the end of the year. And just because of that, we'll be taking a slightly different twist to what we've been doing. Today, I'll hold that as a surprise after we introduce ourselves. Most of you know me. The only thing I can say and announce that's different is I'm actually now a dual citizen. I have that little card that gives me an extra 20% discount on practically everything.
Wow.
Okay. And I went just to the gym and asked. I said, "Hey, we even have a senior discount." I said, "Wow!" And I saw the price. Now, oh, that's pretty good. Okay, that was nice. Well, you know me. Just as a quick brief, I've been in and out of companies maybe too many times. I've been I've been the CEO twice. I've started frontline. I've been up and down five, two or three times, fired more than 800 people, and I facilitated a bunch of leadership and management courses, maybe too many to count. But that's me. And let's start with Jan Ace. Jan Ace.
Yeah, Janice.
Yeah, hi, Paul, hi, gentlemen. Nice to be back here in Tip Talk. So our viewers have also seen me here around. So I am, for those who don't know, I am a Toastmaster and a public servant. I work for the government in the House of Representatives. My evaluation is one of my passions, and that's why I've participated in a lot of our episodes because I like dissecting speeches and I like just the whole idea of being able to look at great communicators.
Mhm.
So happy to be back here in Tip Talks.
Glad to have you back.
Thank you, Jan Ace. Let's go over to Hakee, our newest
Yeah.
member. You're on mute, Hakee.
Sorry. All right. Good evening, gents. It's my first time here in Tip Talks, and it's an honor to be here. I'm Hakee Herrera, for those who don't know, and I'm a mechanical engineer by trade.
Mm.
And I've been a novice Toastmaster for almost 2 years now. And currently, I'm the area director of Area One of Division B, which are the clubs in Makati.
Mm.
So yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Hakee. And we're looking forward to your participation in this new event that we'll have. And let's go over to our iconic Dino Santos.
Funny you should say iconic. Because I probably am the most self-introduced person in all of our shows. So anyway, uh, you all know me. I'm a DTM. I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm a Toastmaster. I'm also a consultant. I've been in the teaching training industry since 1984. Hence the white hair. And yep, just like Paul, I'm enjoying those discounts too. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Dino. Well, I could have used emeritus, but never mind. All right. To those of you watching today, we'll be doing something different. And what we'll be doing is we'll be talking about business catchphrases, some of which I think are just downright hilarious. Some of them maybe got stale. Okay. And let's start with probably one of the most common ones. I'll be the one to go first, and we'll start with paradigm.
Oh yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, paradigm was introduced, oh my goodness, sometime in the 90s.
Mm.
And I remember this clearly because I was trying to start my MBA, and it was in the 90s. I only I only did one semester, and I met a bunch of professors. And one of them used the word paradigm, okay, in his talk. I think he was an HR expert, and he said, you know, it's a new paradigm that we have now. And one of the one of my co-classmates said, "Oh, is Paradigm your wife?" And that got me
What?
laughing. That got
Oh.
me laughing. So yeah, that got me laughing. Well, even me, I haven't looked it up what the definition of paradigm is.
Mm.
Okay, but I think paradigm is more like your how would you say uh it's like your situation that you're in. Okay, that's what I
Or a
think
way
it
of
means.
thinking.
Yeah, what do
Yeah.
you
It's
think,
a
Dino?
framework,
Yes.
A
a
framework.
perspective.
Mm.
All
Or
right, yeah.
or simply put, a mindset. When you
Mm,
say a
yeah.
paradigm, a way of thinking towards something. Initially, when I heard it, I thought, what is this guy talking about? Two 10-cent coins, no, a pair of dimes. And then later, when it started to snowball, everyone was using it for everything. And it just became very irritating because when I teach my presentation or speech classes, I would notice that businessmen started to use it in their speeches, and like I was thinking, this is a class in public speaking, not a Toastmasters meeting, and it's not the word of the day. So why are they all using paradigm, paradigm this, paradigm that, and it quickly began to grate on me. Back to you, Paul.
How about you, Haki? When did you hear paradigm? I mean, maybe I should ask you, how old were you in 1990?
Oh,
Sorry, 1997. Okay. Oh,
okay.
96.
Oh,
Funny you should ask, because that's the year when I was born, actually.
oh,
I was
oh,
just born,
oh. Okay, hey.
barely a millennial. Yeah.
Okay.
Hakee is the
So,
youngest.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm sure you've heard the word. How do you see paradigm?
Mm,
yeah, whenever I'm hearing the word paradigm, it's usually in a business setting, right? Where
mm,
Yeah.
CEOs use it, maybe high ranking managers use it. But
mm,
whenever you hear the word, it kind of implies something grand or groundbreaking, right?
mm,
Usually is. But when you actually listen to it, to the nitty-gritty of it, it's usually just a shift in thinking, right?
mm,
I'm guessing it's
mm,
nothing too grand. It's not groundbreaking at all.
mm.
It's changing something minuscule, but you're using paradigm, which is such an earthquake of a word, right?
Right.
So yeah, back to you.
How
Back to you,
about you,
Paul.
Janice?
Actually, like aside from like work, I hear it in academic circles.
Mm,
Ah,
Where you normally hear it from professors to talk about precisely a way of looking at things,
mm,
and sometimes they would say, "Oh, I'm looking at this concept from the paradigm of so and so and so."
mm,
So it's not something that I normally welcome hearing in a work setting because it sounds like, as we've talked about, it sounds like a buzzword that people use a lot,
yeah.
but sometimes it's out of context. And I
Mm,
am also like, I used to be fond of using the word, like, especially when talking about like a change in mindset. But
mm.
people tell me that, oh, you sound so academic and what. so, so I'm
Mm,
guilty. I'm guilty of using that word a lot also.
mm,
well, what's funny about sounding academic is, and people have asked this of me, if they take, because I'm a trainer and facilitator. And one of the questions they ask me always is, how do you know if the guy's a good trainer or facilitator?
okay.
And I always say, when I can sense that he is not in love with his voice.
Ah.
Okay. And when you start using such words as paradigm, you're in love with yourself because you're not communicating in any way.
Mm,
Kung Tagalogan, you could have just said pananaw and everybody would have understood.
mm.
Okay. Or translate into English, point of view or attitude. They all
You're
say
right.
the same thing. It doesn't,
Yes,
huh?
yes.
Okay. But let's go with paradigm. Why? Because it makes me sound smart. Oh, it makes me sound, if not academic, it makes me sound executive like I belong in the C-suite. Yeah, right.
Mm.
Okay.
A form of erudition.
Yeah. That's one of the things.
Mm,
Does anyone want to contribute another one? I've got so many in my mind, but let's go
mm,
ahead. Anyone?
uh, mm. Oh, here's another one. and this is fairly recent because in almost all business meetings that I've been to, the word sustainability is used left and right. Sustainability this, sustainability that. So when I start to hear that word used over and over again, I said, oh, we're back to the paradigm days. Except that it's a different word now that's popular. And that started to irritate me too. So um that's a word I'd like to throw out there now. It is useful when you talk about a business plan or a project and you add the word sustainability to it. It means you're protecting the investment. You're making sure that it goes on and it's not just a one-time thing.
Right.
Mm.
Right. Haki, I'm pretty sure that in your line of work you hear the word sustainable quite a lot. If you're designing what is it?
Ay, oo nga.
Drainage systems. I'm quite sure you
Yeah.
hear it. Okay.
Yeah, actually, it's a burgeoning line of department here
Mm.
in my line of work. Usually, when you say sustainability, you think you think you're a designer that thinks about global issues like climate change, or this pump station will last for 50 or 100 years. But
Mm.
usually, when you say sustainability, it's another overused buzzword that says, oh yeah, it lasts longer than the usual pump stations or designs as compared to the previous
Mm.
models. So it's another corporate buzzword to me, usually.
Mm. Mm.
How about you, Janice?
Yeah, it's. I mean, actually, you hear it a lot in government and in
Oh.
development work because that's the in thing right now: sustainability and environmental um, resilience. That's another buzzword.
Right.
Oh,
That's another buzzword.
resilience.
I'm guilty of all of the buzzwords, and sometimes you don't know if people are just talking about it because they want to get people's attention,
Mm.
because it's the in thing. It's what people like talking about right now. It's the issue of the day.
Mm.
So sometimes people are sincere about like talking about all of these things, but sometimes you throw out sustainability and you immediately catch the attention of other influential people as a
Mm.
way of catching their attention. So sometimes it loses its meaning in the way that
Mm.
it's been thrown around a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, actually, sustainability, I think it had a good start.
Mm.
They had an ESG, how would you say, like criteria. Okay, that was like tacked on, and for some executives, an ESG score was actually tacked on as an indicator of their performance.
Mm.
Okay, but sustainability, I think, ran into a lot of trouble simply because it's not the intent that was off; it was the way it was being measured that was a problem. Okay, for example, you talk about carbon footprint. Okay, you could buy points. All right, and there's a if you weren't careful, you say, okay, I am going to protect that stand of trees over there. So many hundred, maybe 1,000 acres, 1,000 hectares of trees, and you get points for that. But the whole point is that was already a protected forest in the first place.
Mm.
They couldn't even come to an agreement as to how to measure whether you're having an impact or not. And I'm right now. I see two schools to that. One is saying, "Hey, we're getting progress, even though it's slow." Some are saying, "Ah, it's a big sham." So
Mm.
I'm really not sure what's going on. But to Hake's point, you design things to be, to last.
Mm.
Okay, to maybe be in harmony with the environment, if you want to say.
Mm.
Okay, but one of the best stories I've ever heard about sustainability was, I think, I don't know how true this is, but it's a really nice story. A church was built in the 1300s. Okay, and over the centuries, okay, it actually stayed alive. It was fine. Then sometimes in the 1990s, it burned. Okay, and the guy said, "Okay, let's restore it." And the guy goes, "Yeah, but that kind of wood in the 1300s, you're not going to find it here anymore."
Mm.
But then one of the guys who was taking care of the church said, "Of course he will. The guys who built the church also planted trees over there." Okay. And the trees are just further down the road, and there's the wood that was used in the original church. Okay. So I said, oh, cool. That's a great lesson in sustainability, if you want to say.
Mm.
But for me, the biggest issue with sustainability is the word in itself. I don't think it's sustainable. It's slowly disappearing. Okay. I'm hearing less and less of it. Okay.
Right,
Mm.
right.
All right. How about you, Janice? What's any favorite catchphrases that you've heard?
This is a phrase that you hear that because it's so used, particularly in my line of work, that I think it has lost its meaning, which is good governance. I mean, like
Oh.
you hear good governance being thrown around so much, especially by politicians,
Mm.
and the way that it's been used by politicians is that it's used to mask incompetence now.
Mm.
Like there are a lot of people that are genuinely good governors or people
Mm.
that manage their jobs well, but a lot of times, oh yeah, I'm practicing good governance, but you see like what they're doing inside it. Either they're just nice people or not doing anything innovative, or they're just masking whatever shady business they're doing by throwing the
Mm.
word around. And I've seen that also like in corporate circles on the side of corporate governance. So I think that buzz phrase "good governance" has really, it becomes ambiguous now what it actually means
Mm.
because of how much it's thrown around.
Sadly, in this country, that's an oxymoron.
Right.
Huh? Sadly, but I'm sure there are certain agencies or LGUs that are really managed well.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are, but they're
Yeah,
not the
there
ones
are.
getting
Yeah,
the spotlight. They're not.
yeah,
True.
yeah. That's
True.
true. It,
That's
yeah, yeah. There's it. I forgot the exact phrase, but there's a saying that goes like the empty can is often the loudest.
Right.
Like so like those people who don't really have much to show are the
Mm.
ones who are often screaming all of these things
Mm.
that's a
to
good
make
one.
themselves
That's a
look
good one.
competent.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
you, Dino? How about good governance?
I'd like to cite an agency that was number one in terms of a good reputation. There was a time that I was doing training for the Bureau of Soil and Water Management, and so during the year that I did the team building for them, they ranked number one of all the agencies in terms of good governance. And that was slightly ironic because the Department of Agriculture in that same era was in the doghouse. But that bureau is under that parent agency, under the DA, and yet it managed to have all of the highest ratings. And so I'm with you on that. It's sort of like an oxymoron in the sense that we see so little of it, and but everybody likes to talk about it, but nobody's really doing it.
How about you, Haki?
Yeah, I actually agree with the my gripes with the word good governance, because the whole term of it is extremely vague, just like Johnny said. Like, yeah, how do you gauge or measure this? What are the
Mm,
metrics, right? These
mm,
politicians would say, "Oh yeah, I have good governance because I have X amount of projects this year." And you dive into those projects, you'll see that there are basketball courts and a few giveaways of rice or emergency storage, but
mm.
not they're not measuring the real metrics, like how many people did you lift out of poverty
Yeah.
or something like that. The real metrics are not being measured in this good
Mm.
governance metrics, right? That's my gripe with that.
Actually, I have a little story about that. I was training a government agency. I was training them project management. Okay, and one of the things that they always seem to fail in was
Mm.
determining the duration of a certain task. Okay.
Oh.
So then, I was asking, okay, so how long does the bidding actually takes? I said, it can reach 6 months
Wow.
longer. And then I goes, and how come you put 2 weeks in your plan? because that's the ISO standard. And they go, that is,
What
God,
the?
that's good governance. You were following the rules.
Oh boy.
And
Oh my
I
gosh.
just, oh dear. That was funny. I said,
Oh my
how could
gosh.
you do that?
Oh my gosh.
Totoo.
So
Horrifying.
that's a good example of good governance. Following the rules, but
Oh.
uh, actually, there's another word that you just said. Gosh, I should have remembered it. Do you know it was you who said the word? Anyway, it'll probably come to mind. Anybody else want to contribute anything? Hakee, do you have any other catchphrase that you might have that you
Well,
hear a
not
lot? Go ahead.
well. It's not really corporate sounding, but more general catchphrases. Whenever I hear the catchphrase or idiom, to be honest, or if you put
Oh.
honestly at the start of your word, at the start of your sentences,
Hmm.
it's it's just something about it that irks me. Like
Hmm.
whenever you start your sentence to be honest or honestly, it kind of implies that your prior sentences were not honest, right?
Right.
The implication of that is there's some implication that's a bit blurry to me. But what
Hmm.
do you think? Is that overused?
So actually, I've got an interesting take on that, but I'd like to hear what Dino or Janice have to say about honestly.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think when they say to be honest, it's to imply that previously they've made an effort to be diplomatic, to wear gloves and then to treat the person they're talking to gently. And then when they say to be honest, it means that the gloves now come off. And I'm about to give you the unvarnished truth. And yet
I like that.
the interpretation of that could be as you said it, that are you therefore implying that everything you've said before that was a lie? So I get what you're saying.
Right. How about
How
you,
about you,
Janice?
Janice?
yeah, it's actually like I don't like it also. I don't use that phrase a lot because it feels like I share what Nina said about it being like a shift or it feels like a what's the right term? A hedging device that
Mm,
you want to try to soften the blow of something you're gonna say, but in that sense, you actually imply that you haven't been really straightforward with that person initially at some
Exactly.
point. So I'm not a fan of that. I don't use it, and the less I hear of it, I the better probably. I don't know.
Mm. You know what's funny about honestly, or honesty, and even sometimes you can bundle the word integrity with it. Is for me, these are words people have to say you are. You don't
right,
claim to be a person of integrity. You don't say, I'm an honest man. You don't say that.
right.
Somebody has to tell you you are. Otherwise,
Mm,
it's like a false, you're a false prophet if you want to say. But these are things that you don't say, you don't talk to yourself about. It's just like these young ladies in the work, they come up to me, Paul, don't I look beautiful today? And I always tell them, the idea is you have to get somebody to tell you look beautiful. Don't go around announcing it.
mm,
so, and just to cheer it up, yes, you look lovely today. I'll tell them, okay, but still, honesty and integrity. So if you see these words in the in the mission, vision, and values of an organization, it's also telling you something. Okay, that really now we're an honest company. Okay, it makes you start thinking twice about that. But that was an excellent contribution, Hakee. It is actually, and that's something I learned in sales. You never say honestly, because as you pointed out, it's just saying that you've been lying all until this time. Only now I'm honest. Okay, the one that
Can I like coming from can I share some coming from what Haki said about honesty, there's another an similar. So I had like a I had my ex girlfriend. She used to always say there were times that she said no offense a lot, and then she would say something like offensive,
Mm.
and say I would tell her straight up, just don't say no offense because it feels more offensive when you
Right.
actually say no offense. So I really dislike that phrase because it doesn't really like make it sound respectful in any more way at all.
You
Uh,
know, taking what you said, Janice, I'm sure you've heard the saying, it's better to ask forgiveness rather than to ask permission.
oh,
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
yeah.
And the last time somebody posted that, you know what I wrote back? I go, why? What do you intend to do?
Ah, and no
What
wonder
crime do you intend to
she's
commit? You know?
yeah. Kaya pala naging ex na. Ayun.
Yeah, that's another story for another day.
Mm. Because the way interpreted it is when somebody says something like that, it's like there's they're making you stop moving like a punching bag, and then they expect you to not react when they hit you.
Oh, that's a good
I like that.
illustration. That's a good illustration.
It'll still hurt anyway.
Aki, how about you? Looks like you want to say something?
Yeah, pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Like it's feigning sincerity, but no matter how you look at it, it will be insincere. No,
Hmm.
so it's really you're really trying to softening up the blow of negativity, but you're predicting it already. It's already
Hmm.
negative, so just say it. Yeah. So
Mm.
I guess it's something that you should say it directly instead of like skirting around the point. Yeah,
Hmm.
You know,
that's what.
talking about speaking directly, the term I use, I say, I'll be kind, okay, but I won't be nice. Okay, so in short, if I'm talking to you, Janice, and I see you have a booger in your nose, I'll tell you right away you have a booger in your nose. Okay, maybe I wasn't nice, but I was kind because you look stupid.
Right. It was an act of kindness. It was an act of
Act of
kindness.
kindness, but I'm not nice. Okay, right? Or your breath stinks, or say something like that. Okay? that, that's the way I phrase it. Okay.
Hmm.
But going back to that, the other one that's very closely related to things like that is the term constructive criticism. And I always laugh
Oh. Oh
every
yeah,
time I
yeah.
hear that. Okay, why? Because criticism is
Hmm.
criticism is criticism. It is not constructive in any way. Period. Okay. Uh, so every time I hear that, I said, "Yeah, right." Okay. But I still hear it quite a lot, especially in the coaching field, if you want to say.
Hmm.
Uh, Personally, I corrected by seeing either you're commending or correcting.
Hmm.
I just chose different words, but they're also very, I think, a lot clearer than coming up with constructive criticism. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
How about you, Dino? What do you know about constructive criticism?
Well, when people say they're about to give constructive criticism, it's really a lot like something you hear during performance appraisals, and the employee who just got praised. In other words, if we follow the Toastmasters format of kiss, kick, and then kiss,
Mm-hmm.
the employee just heard the kiss, and now when the boss says, however, then you know that a constructive criticism is coming, and suddenly shields up. The employee is suddenly sitting straight up and really paying attention. And whatever nice things you said before just got flushed down the toilet,
Mm-hmm.
because now they're more interested about what it is that they may need to change or to do better. So I think that in order to avoid that shields up moment in the employee where they suddenly become defensive or ready to defend themselves, I wouldn't say constructive criticism. I just say, "Oh, Paul, you're such a wonderful employee. You're always on time. Everybody likes you. You never say no to an assignment. And I feel you could grow even more when you do this. So instead of saying, I'd like to give you constructive criticism, just go and add the word "and" so that the shields don't go up.
How about you, Janice?
No,
Constructive criticism.
I just coming up from what Dino said. That's really like a classic Toastmaster evaluation principle. Do not mix up the negatives and the positives, or use but and however.
Yeah.
It keeps it shields people become defensive immediately. It's the illustration that I normally use is something I got from distinguished Toastmaster Kenneth Ko,
Ah, yeah,
where
Kenneth. Yeah.
Kenneth always uses this illustration where it's as if you're telling a friend of yours, you're beautiful but you stink. So it really sends mixed signals,
Yeah.
and it doesn't sound good.
Mm.
And that does sound like constructive criticism. And I was guilty also of using like that phrase before, but I don't use it anymore now because it doesn't really capture what you're trying to say. So I'd
Mm.
rather use just a neutral term like feedback or recommendations or suggestions, which really just captures in a much more straightforward and neutral way what you're trying to say.
Mm.
How about you, Hakee? I'm sure you've heard it at work. I'm sure.
It is.
This is an
Actually,
Australian company, right?
yeah,
I'm sure you
exactly.
have.
Before we go there, I'm actually very guilty of that crime of using the dreaded "but" or "however" in my evaluations. That's why
Okay.
every time, all of my general evaluators for the past few months, their comment towards me was like, "Can you try using dropping "but" and "however" and just say "and" just to
Mm.
continue your evaluation," which it actually makes sense because it'll cancel out all of your good points and good commendations at the start, right? But yeah, constructive criticism. Actually, prior to this conversation, I have not thought about that, and it's a mind blowing, it's a mind blowing revelation to me right now, actually,
Mm.
because you're right. Criticism is criticism is criticism. It's gonna be judgment anyways. That's why I actually really appreciate those masters because instead of criticism, we try to give suggestions. Like we say, "Here's a tip for next time," or "Here's how can I? Here's how we can elevate your speech to the next level."
Mm.
Some things like that. Back to you.
What's funny? When I joined the Toastmasters first, it was still the kiss, slap, kiss principle they were using. No, it was. And I said, "What are you guys doing?" I said, That's very confusing. The guy doesn't know if he's being praised or corrected. He has no idea." Okay, and then I think the next year they changed it. When I saw the new evaluation form come out, I said, "Oh, okay." I forgot what year that was, but I remember that switch somewhere along the line.
Mm.
And one thing I have learned about communication is, and this is sheer science. Okay, apparently our brains, when they receive any input, it has 13 trillion different pathways that input can take. Trillion.
Wow.
Okay, trillion is more stars than in our galaxy.
Right.
Okay, so if you think about it, even me while I'm talking, the chances that all three of you understand me exactly the same way is probably zero.
Mm.
It's literally zero. Okay. So I should make an effort to make my words very clear and choose words that I think are better understood in a very broad sense.
Mm.
Okay. That are clearly understood. And that brings me up to another catchphrase. Have you ever heard of the word factoid?
Yeah.
I have not encountered that. This is the first time
Okay.
encountering
Alright.
it.
It sounds like some kind of space alien, factoids
Yeah,
are
it
coming
does.
to attack us. Ah, okay. And the funny thing was, and why I've just stopped using it is apparently there are too many different definitions of the word.
Mm.
Okay, one will say it's a fact, the other say it's not a fact. The other say it's innocent, so just don't use it. Okay, it just
Mm.
confuses everyone. All right, but that one, if you haven't heard it, I don't understand this one. But I'm sure you've heard this word, and this is one of my favorite words that made me laugh like hell during the pandemic: quiet resignation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Or the one I hear now is quiet quitting.
Right. Yeah.
Quiet quitting or quiet staying?
Mm.
Quiet quitting. Quiet
Oh,
quitting.
okay.
Quite,
So you're
yeah,
yeah,
quite
I don't know
fitting.
if it's the same concept, but quiet quitting is what I hear in my circles.
Mm.
You know what I found really really funny. Oh, tell you what, I think Hakee has heard of the term uh, quiet quitting or quiet resignation. Have you heard of it, Hakee? I'm sure you have.
It's very famous in millennial and Gen Z circles. It's
Yes,
probably their bare
perfect.
minimum thing to do in the workplace.
Right, right.
Mm.
But actually, what I find really hilarious is if you're doing your performance appraisal correctly,
Mm.
the bare minimum is meets expectations. And in most companies, meets expectations is damn hard. It's not easy. Okay. Because they give you these incredible goals, right? And you really have to run for it.
Mm.
So when you exceed an expectation, that's why they consider you for a promotion because you've really done super duper. Okay. So when they said, so, because I come from the telemarketing end and we had a quota, I say the quota, let's say, was 10 sales for the day. So after 10 sales, you'll quit. You're quiet quitting. The way I see it is you get to keep your seat. Otherwise, go home. You didn't make it. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a boomer, but I felt like laughing. Are you telling me that you're finally gonna make the effort to meet the bare expectations, the bare minimum?
Mm.
Okay, that's what made me laugh. How about you, Dino?
Well, first I'd like to react to the word you shared earlier, factoid, and share a theory as to why it didn't survive for very long. Because when you say fact, you're declaring something as an absolute or something that nobody will disagree over. But when you add the suffix toid, then it seems to imply that it's an artificial thing, so, sort of like android being an artificial human
Oh,
versus being a human being. So when you have a fact and then you add toid to it, then it makes it less real and sound artificial, like a made up fact.
oh, you mean the
Yeah.
alternative facts, the
Yeah,
famous
the yeah.
famous.
Alternative facts
Yeah.
brings us back to the Tim Minchin episode.
True. Now about the quiet resignation thing, I have a
Or
short
quiet quitting.
story.
I think
Quiet
Janice
quitting.
is more precise with quiet quitting. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Go ahead,
Well,
Dino.
the other day I was talking to the team in my office because mom is in the US on vacation for a month. And so I effectively became the OIC while she's away. And then I sat the team, my team downstairs, and I talked to them and I said, okay, we're about to be called by a client who will ask us about the four levels of evaluation based on Kirkpatrick's theory. So are all of you familiar with it? And then one of the members of my team who had this look that said, oh, good grief, we're about to get a 5 to 7 minute lecture about Kirkpatrick's theory of evaluations, right? Levels of evaluation. So he said, "Oh yes, sir. I have the overview already." So in other words, he by saying that he kind of said, "I don't want to hear it." And so I said, "Oh, I'm glad that you already have an overview. Do you mind sharing with us?" And then and I said, So what's level one?" And he said, well, sir, maybe you can share it with us. And then, okay, so I called him out, invited him to share, and then suddenly he reveals he doesn't know. And so I took all of them through the four. with some relevant examples. And I told them, if a client calls and asks us up to what level can we do for them, this is what you say. We can do level 1, level 2, 3, and 4 is a bit more involved because it requires the cooperation of the client and that they allow us access to possibly sensitive information that they would normally not let outsiders have. So then we got through that, but then that's also when I realized that that particular member of my team is a quiet quitter because he'd rather not even hear an explanation that might help him do his job better.
Actually, that's the challenge with all these models that show up. Okay, Kirkpatrick isn't the only one. There are all kinds of
True.
models that show up,
True.
and admittedly, some of them look very similar.
Hmm.
Okay, but if the guy asks, you better know it.
Yeah.
Okay, you better know it if the guy asks. But sometimes, admittedly, the client is just asking. You find out he doesn't know anything about it either. It was just
Right.
something cool he saw. Oh, cool! Let's do Kirkpatrick. It's find out doesn't know anything either.
Mhm.
Okay, but that one was interesting. The how do you call it? The quiet quitting, as Janice actually corrected. But I found that one really funny because, admittedly, come on, at least in the companies I worked for, my goodness, meeting expectations was wow, good job, something to be proud of. You know what I mean? It's an article.
Mhm.
Oh, so you're going to meet expectations for the first time now? Cool. Okay.
Uh,
That was unusual. Yes.
I'd like to share a few phrases that I'm sure all of you might agree with that have been used through the decades and are still being used now, but don't make sense when people use it. For example, even in the Toastmasters, you hear a phrase like somebody who needs no introduction. And then right after they say that, the MC introduces the person. And I've never understood that. And then here's another one when they'll say, without further ado, which means without further delay. But by saying it, they're doing it. And then something like, with all due respect. And then after that, what they're going to say is very disrespectful. So, I just wanted to throw that out there because it's part of my eternal rant with what some of our friends in Toastmasters sometimes still do unbelievably up to now.
Yeah. Well, old habits die hard. What can I say?
True.
That's true.
How about you, Janice? Do you have anything to contribute? Anything to add? Maybe a couple
Yeah,
more?
that just to take up what from what Tina said, it takes a while to get those bad habits out of your system. The without further ado, I mean, like I was guilty of that at some point until like Nina pointed it out during one of I stopped doing it afterwards. But I still hear it from a lot of other Toastmasters.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Something else to contribute this came to mind when we were talking about quiet quitting. Around 10 years ago, when I was still new in the workforce, and the my older bosses would always use the term, um, would always look at, well, we were millennials, but we would always throw around the term millennial to refer to anything that was not Gen X or boomer
Baby
or whatnot.
boomers. Yes.
Yeah, and everything that was related to people being young was always attached to being a millennial concept. And at the even now, when there are already newer generations like Gen Z and like all of these other new generations, I still hear some people refer to them as millennials when millennials are already like we're kind of old already in the workforce also. So I don't know, like I don't know what everybody's experiences with that, but at that time I found it funny how my boss, who was pretty up in age, always looked at younger things as millennial things.
Well, that's true. Many of the millennials, and I was joking Hackey about this earlier, is that now they're the managers. And I said, I wonder if they like it.
Mm.
Now we frown on the Gen Zs.
Right.
It's
What I
a
found,
vicious cycle.
actually, what I found interesting about Gen Z is Gen Z and Boomers seem to get along pretty well
True.
for some strange reason.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Okay, and
Mm.
Yeah.
I said I'm trying to figure out why. I said maybe because they had the shared experience of the pandemic, and
Mm.
when the pandemic came, they kind of supported each other. The Boomers had the wisdom, if you want to say, and then Gen Z had the tech skills that the Boomers
Mm.
had to learn.
Yeah.
So I said maybe that's why it happened, but there seems to be much a greater respect between the Boomer and Gen Z guys. I personally I don't know why. That's just my pet theory. Okay, but there seems to be much more respect between them. The millennials seem to be the black sheep, if you want to say.
Mm.
Okay, maybe it's because they were always called out. They're always called out as a problem. Millennials, millennial this, millennial that. Yeah, 10 years ago, it was an issue. You had courses how to deal with millennials. I was
Yeah.
there. I said, huh?
You had those? Wow.
Oh yeah, we did. We did. That was even I think we sold a couple, but we had
Mm.
them, and I think it was more of like really one of those things. Like, do you remember the Y2K scare?
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of companies made money on nothing.
Mm.
Oh, that's true.
An
That's true.
example, they're making a movie about it.
Yeah,
Oh.
probably.
Yeah. Just
They made a lot of money out of nothing.
Mm.
Expecting the world to crash. I said, oh no. Anyway, but that's no, that's one of the how would you say? It's one of the selling tricks you can do as a consultant. This FOMO, fear of missing out,
Mm.
especially if you're selling to an executive who feels like he has to be always up there with everything. Well, it's been a great time talking to you guys. I'll just add one last thing with the word but, and I'm always a firm believer that all words in English, it's just a matter of how you use it.
Mm.
Okay. So for example, they like to say never ask why.
Oh.
Okay. And why? And they say why because it can come across as accusatory. I'll agree with that. But among all the question words out there, why is the most powerful one?
Mm.
It's the one that can get you the actual reason. And I said, it's just a matter of knowing when to use it. If I'm already comfortable talking to Hakee and Jan Ace and Dino, I don't think they're going to frown on me and say, if I ask why, I don't think they're going to feel like I'm accusing them. There's a time to use it and a time not to use it. I'll agree with that. Which brings us to but. What's funny is but can be used. You just have to reverse the order.
Mm.
When you're with a beautiful woman, you say, you stink, but you're absolutely ravishing. Put, put the
that's pretty
bad thing
clever.
first, and then put the good thing next. Okay, just turn it around. They go.
Well, that's a good tip.
Uh,
Start with the negative, end with
yeah.
the positive.
So you deny the
That's
negative.
nice.
Okay, there you go. See, so again, it's
That's
really
nice.
it's really just a matter of using that.
Mm.
Okay. Now, you know, this is episode 11 of
Yes,
season
episode
one.
11.
We have one more episode to go, but I really enjoyed myself, and I think we still got a lot of words in our mind or some list that we have. Okay, and so for the next episode, what I'm thinking is we'll just continue with this.
Okay.
For season one, I'm sorry, for episode one of season two, what I'd like to introduce, and again, maybe this is because of my corporate background and because I teach leadership a lot, we'll come up with a ranking system of what I would call your favorite leadership quotes. Okay.
Oh.
And every quote you'll have the right to debunk it if you want. That's not true. You could
Mm.
say that. And just to give you a little preview, one of my favorites is, you hire for attitude, not for skill. Okay.
Mm.
And I laugh at that. So you know what? Duh, of course you do. All companies will hire for cultural fit, which is the same thing. Okay, they will. So what's new about that? And more interestingly, if you're telling me that you have to hire the right attitude, you're telling me that you have the wrong attitude in your company
Mm,
because you need to get the right
Mm,
one from outside.
mm,
good
All
point.
right. Okay. And just to give you a really solid example of this, if you look at the US military, they're not perfect,
Mm,
but they can hire somebody who's not even finished high school and
mm,
make him function in a complex system.
right.
mm,
Ah, okay. All right. And I'm
Mm,
sure you've seen all the stories. The guy walks in with this bad attitude, and the mean sergeant, chews him out, and then 6 months later, he's now a man, and just follows all the orders. So
true,
mm,
true.
they have a system that can fix it.
Mm,
And for me, all companies should have a system that works like that, or at least can identify quickly what doesn't belong and kick it out.
mm.
Okay, so that one I find funny. Yes, really now. But that's for the next season. But I
Yeah.
enjoyed myself today. How about you guys?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It was fun.
Yeah, I got to
Um,
complain. So it's fun.
So,
Hakit,
so,
you were a revelation.
so Haki, next time if you hear any of these words that we talked about, and your telling boss is talking to you, you could say, hmm.
I've heard of this. I'm on to you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, anyway, yes, go ahead, Dina.
for the next show, I will also contribute what I always hear in company boardrooms. When the CEO or the president gets mad and says, "I want you to stop using that motherhood statement." And when they first heard that, I said, "Is there anybody who's a mother here? Why is he saying motherhood?" And then later on, to find out that what it meant was a sweeping generalization without any substantive facts to back it up. So that confused me. So yeah, that'll be
Oh,
part of what we're going to.
there's a lot of motherhood statements in the government then.
True.
Well, he didn't say anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good, but he didn't say anything. All right. The end. Okay.
Yeah. So in any case, that the next list for us might be for the season ender, episode
Yes.
12. Yeah.
Yes, let's do that. And then for season 2, we'll just start with a new list if you want to say.
Mm.
Okay. I'll think of a name for it. Okay. And then just say,
Okay.
and then we just start putting things up there and see which ones stick if you want to say.
Right, right.
And to our viewers, I'm sure, and if you enjoyed it as much as we did, please click below. We have subscribe, follow, and what is it? Subscribe, follow, and there's another one. See, I forgot that. My
Share.
good share. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so subscribe, follow, and share. And as always, learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas.